Join me at the kitchen table here. Let's take a look at aging legacy through stories. And we're going to start here. Your legacy isn't just what you leave behind, it's the stories you share while you're here. Live from the heart, encourage your voice, and start shaping a timeless legacy today. I presented a video called Stop Aging, Start Living, Continue Legacy Life. And it was to share with you the basics to get going. So I thought that I would sort of tap into that and create a series here. And in that video, I talked about there's 5 pillars to this notion of stop aging and start living. It's the story, the challenge, the gift, the experience, the push, the pull. And in this video, I want to drop into the meaning, the sense of story, and see where it might take us. Now, storytelling and sharing, I think it's important that I make a distinction here for you. A story, the story, history, mystery, presence, and the origin signature story. Now, one of the things that I've come to understand about story is it's a way in which to provide a narrative about living your life. And when it comes to legacy, often what people will share is, I'm going to leave my legacy behind. And I go, great. Why not share your legacy while you're still here? In other words, live the legacy you intend to leave. It's a reframing and it brings a different resonance to your head, heart, and hands. And therefore, when you do it through that revised lens, then what you're able to do is balance your head and heart, find that harmony that is there so that you can start, continue, and if need be, stop your legacy journey, stop elements of your legacy journey. And therefore, story sharing leads from the heart. Storytelling manages from the head, and others who are interacting with you and listening to your story, what they're doing is they're waiting for your voice. Your story is a way to share your voice, to share your authenticity, your mastery, your position. Therefore, there's something to be said here for what is unfolding through your use of stories and how you engage others in those stories, whether you're leading from the heart or managing from the head. As we make our way to the 3 main topics of this video, I think it's important that we just go over what is the importance of stories in living your legacy life. And I've made this list here, and I'm going to leave it on the screen just so that you have them. And then what I'm going to encourage you to do is we go down through them. Think of it like a checklist and just sort of check, okay, I understand that one, or not quite sure. I may have to do a little bit more in-depth understanding or digging around. Now, if you've not met me, I'm Stephen. I am the CEO of Wealth Movement, who is the sponsor, the administration behind Younger, Older, Elder. And I am 71. I'm in my 71st revolution of the sun. And living a legacy life is important. And I thought that I would share what I'm learning about it with you. So at any point in time, you can drop a comment or a question down below, and I will certainly get to it and provide a response. So let's look at the importance of stories in this overall overarching way of doing so. Stories communicate life experiences and wisdom. Is that if you're willing to share those experiences that you've had, the wisdom that you have framed up, and you're going, I think it's time to put that out there, then stories is a great way to do it. you probably don't realize it, but you do it anyway in the normal conversations you're having with others. You're sharing stories just about all the time, and it could be through analogies or metaphors or similes, any of those different kinds of techniques. You might even do it through your writing as well. And what stories do is they make sense of your life. And that is wonderful, is because the more you share your stories, the more you make sense of it. And therefore, you improve focus and strengthen ways for others to benefit from this experience and wisdom because you've made sense of your life through the stories and then the story sharing. And you also, with these stories, is you're going to encourage and motivate those who hear you to dive into their own stories. And depending where they are, it may mean, oh, wow, I hadn't thought of it that way. Thanks for doing that with me. With your stories, I can do this with my stories. And that's a great sort of pass along. What your stories are going to do is get you to reflect and preserve values and experiences and your values that you have, what it is that you're going to share about how you use your space, your time, your effort, your money. These are ways in which people can pick up on, oh, okay, this is what was important to you and I can learn from you about that. Or, oh, I'm actually doing some of that myself. Oh, hang on a minute, I haven't thought about doing that for myself. So, again, stimulate to reflect and preserve your values, but also to nourish this intergenerational conversations that are possible. You may, through family and friends, find ways in which to talk to the youngers. Remember, younger, older, elder is the name of this channel. You'll probably find yourself in an older, therefore, there are some who are younger. And you may want to tap into some elders that you know and be able to get them having a conversation with you, learning from their stories, they're learning from your stories, and find ways in which to leverage these insights for everyone. You can support meaning making for you and others. I've hinted at this already. One of the things that stories does or can do is making sense, making meaning of your life. And by sharing them, what you're doing is, in a sense, you're educating what you love to learn. That's another way of looking at it. And that is another wonderful, wonderful way of coming to know yourself, but also to deepen, foster, nurture kinder connections with others. That is possible because of the stories that you share. And also, you might find yourself in this influence, impact, future perspectives. Influence in that, oh, here's something for you to consider, and I'm going to share it through a story. But if the person takes it up and they find that that story, what influence you've shared with them, gets them to take new action or to think through things differently, then you are in impact. Now, at its deepest level, what I have found stories to do is encourage personal identity and dignity. The identity comes from the meaning I take from it, the control of the events that I want to welcome into my life, the optimism by which I'm going to approach living my life, the framing and moving through what might be some challenges because of resilience. I'm framing this all up for myself in such a way as that I can age confidently, naturally, gracefully. I'm thinking that is a wonderful way in which to live life and to live it with this legacy story going with it. Wouldn't you agree? Let me know down below. To age confidently, naturally, and gracefully as you share stories. Is that something that's important to you? If you're already doing it, give us an example of what it might look like for you if you're willing to share. Again, confidentiality and privacy. You're posting into a public area. Now, what I've also found is sharing the stories especially from challenging circumstances. What it does is it gets me a chance to look at things. So, okay, I can look at it from this perspective. I can look at it from this perspective. What would happen if I shared a story and brought those different perspectives together and wove that? The stories is actually a way in which to find the fun, the freedom, the fulfillment, the peacefulness that I'm looking for as I'm aging. So I offer these ways of looking at the importance of stories for you to consider. Again, go down through them like a checklist and assessment and find out where you may want to dive in a little deeper and find out what's possible for you and celebrate what you've already bringing into your life. That is wonderful as well. And if you want to hint down below of these, which one do you feel as though, whoa, I got this, I understand this, and give us an example? That would be helpful as well. Now, I had three things that I wanted to share with you in this video. And the first one is around, yes, to understand and value the story through the three dimensions of story. And that is framed as a story, the story, and sharing the and the of story. So, a story, you have them happening to you all the time, and you can think of it thoughts going through your head and stories that you're creating with them. And they're about facts and ideas and framing some kind of narrative. And it's sort of a structuring your intellectual being. You have those stories, a story, a story, a story, a story. There are a lot of them, but in them, there is the story that really touches the heart. And what's happening is your emotions are getting connected with the story, and you're building empathy and connections, even if it's with yourself and with others that you're interacting with. And what it does is it brings out that vivid imagination and relatable experiences that you can tap into and share. One of the great things about stories, you can report them, you can talk about the results of them, but if you can relive them and revitalize and enliven them with others, oh, it just deepens it for yourself. And from my perspective, I think that is wonderful, wonderful phrase that I often use. So let us know down below the understanding between a story and the story. But when you share the story and put it into your hands, what you're doing is you're inspiring your action and those who are listening to you into actions so that they can help figure out what they want to do next. And therefore, the emotions and the facts, you're able to give some clarity to those two and how they might weave together. And that's why a story, the story, and sharing them together is sort of like three dimensions of a story on an everyday basis. So give it a go and see what happens for yourself. The next one of looking at understand and value story is balancing history and mystery. Do you notice in history, hi, this is my story, my history? And then there's mystery, my stary. And stary in Scottish means star. So my star, where am I looking at coming from? My future. So if history is your past into now, and your mystery is your future into now, then you're able to figure out what your presence is about. Let me unpack that just a little bit more. So, the history, the story of your history is to reflect on your past experiences, shaping your present perspective. Your mystery is leaning into the possibilities of the future that you can invite through curiosity and answering what's next into your present. And then in your present, dynamically balancing, all right, this history, this mystery and weaving them together. So remember the us story, the story, weaving them together. History, mystery, weaving them together. Just different ways of looking at how story unfolds for you. The third way of looking at understand and value story is around origin story and signature stories. Origin stories gives you a sense of where did it all come from. The signature story is that one story or two or three that when you share them in whatever setting, you can bring them into that setting and give meaning through that story about what's happening in the presence of and where you share that story. Well, it's my origin story out of my time in Africa when I was sent over to work with the International Red Cross and Red Crescent societies. And there I was to help to reshape, redevelop the health education for schools, and also to do a forestry program as a side project with the schools to help them understand about planting and growing nurseries to replant the trees into the hills to stop disaster from happening, the hills from sliding down. So that was my job that I was sent over to do. But once I got there, I was asked, what do I know about HIV and AIDS? I said, I don't know a lot. And my head of delegation said, guess what? You're going to know a lot more than most of the people in the world. Okay, I get it. And so I dove in to try and figure out what was happening. But it was in the evenings when I wasn't in the office and I had read my earlier books that I went, is there any other books around? And, oh, right, there's a library out in the living room. So out I went. And one of the ways that I sort of look at book titles is I put my hand and I scan over the books. And if something sort of moves or tingles my fingers, I take a look at it. I was doing this, and this one book felt as though it was asking, pull me out. And it sort of, in a sense, to me, fell into my hand as I was doing it. And it was the book, The Aquarian Conspiracy by Marilyn Ferguson. I went, okay, what's this about? Intriguing title. So I opened it, I started reading some of it, and I went, wow, this could actually help me in all of this work that I'm doing around HIV and AIDS, the health education development, the forestry program. It was a new way in which to look at it. And I said, okay, I'm going to give myself some time. And I grounded myself in what was that book. And so in the evenings, I slow read through the book. And using an old typewriter that I found, I typed out notes. And it was really interesting. One night I was typing by candlelight, the next night I was by electric light. And so I have this vivid origin story around how the company that I now have came about because of that book, and also just typing out those notes and bringing them forward. I still actually have those typed notes. And this is like 30 plus years later. So it was a great time, and it's an origin story. Let me counter that by saying, what's a signature story? And it's to give you a really core image to work with. And this is what happened for me. A roadblock is a pile of rocks, and if there's soldiers nearby, it's daylight, you stop. That's a roadblock. And so I was traveling between a couple of towns doing the work that I was doing in Uganda. And we pulled over to talk to the soldier that came walking towards. So I rolled down my window, and in through the window came the machine gun, and it came and just touched the tip of my nose and went back. And it obviously startled me, and my head sort of went back and forth a little bit, and then I noticed that my driver was talking to the soldier. So they were having a conversation that I kept coming back to this gun that was right in front of me. And I was going, "Oh, what's going on?" Because I couldn't understand what the conversation was about. And I went, "Hang on a minute. I'm not sure that I want to lose my head. Okay, maybe my hearing." So I pushed the gun to the side. Back it came in front of me. And listening to the conversation, then I noticed that it started to wobble a little bit. And I said, "For sure, I'm moving it over." Back it came, started to wobble. But I also picked up off to the side laughter. And that's kind of back. So now I had my driver, I had the soldier, I had the laughter, the machine gun. All of this was all going on at the time, pushing it away. And then eventually my driver says, "Okay, they've given us the go ahead to leave." I said, "Okay." So out the machine gun went out the window, and I just, okay. And then we started, and we pulled away. And I went, "Whew." And I said to my driver, "How old was that soldier?" Because I'm looking at the soldier in my side mirror. And he said, "Well, she's about 14, 15, 16." And I went, "What?" And then I said, I had a little bit of a conversation with myself, still looking in the side mirror. That young woman was 14 to 16. Yeah, young woman. She was a soldier. The gun was wobbling because it was heavy for her to hold it up. The laughter was the other soldiers laughing at her situation. And I went, wow. And in that 3 minutes of that interaction, and then me driving away, thinking to myself, I said, "You know what? I'm going to do whatever I can for the rest of my life so that a young person doesn't have to pick up a weapon and point it at someone when they could use their words to do collaborative activities." And so I made a decision at that point in time that I would find the wealth of it, WELLTH, about well living and well being to the nth degree, and doing it through words. Words matter, and thus taking away the sense of the need for weapons. That was my thinking. That's where I came from, and thus wealth movement. So that young woman became my 3 minute mentor. And because of the impact that that had on my life and the thoughts that came about because of it, it is more than an origin story. It is a signature story of why I do what I do today. And it's ever present. And I use it in all kinds of situations, whether I'm having a one to one conversation, chatting with groups about mergers and acquisitions, talking with groups and teams about what it means to be impactful and what happens in situations you find yourself in. I can use that all the time. So I ask you, you have a story, a story, a story. There is the story. But is there the story that becomes an origin story that helps when you share it with others so people can get a little bit more about your background? But also, do you have a signature story that when you share it, people really get to know your head, heart, and hands? They truly get to see who you are. They tap into your voice, your authenticity, your mastery, your position. It becomes clear. And what it means to have some sense of the felt safety that you have brought into your life. And by sharing the story, you're sharing that felt safety with others. So if you take a look at it, right? There is something to be said for these kinds of stories. And I'm hoping that I'm sort of a building block or putting the seeds in the seed bed to grow, that there's a possibility here. And even if you went and re listened to this section, you would get, oh, this is what's going on. Oh, okay, I see that, see that. What I also want to share next is just a quick way to remember how to document your stories because that becomes important. Documenting the stories. the evidence that you're going to use to create some stories so that you can figure out how to share it, to educate it, so that you enrich your own experiences and experiences of others that you're interacting with. 3 tips here to get you going. This is quick, just quick. The first one is grab recipe cards that you write down recipes on, grab some sticky notes, both one or the other, and just start writing down some of the stories, some of the activities, the experiences you have, just writing them down so that you have some cue cards to work with. What you're able to do is go, okay, let me bring those sticky notes, recipe cards over into a journal and let me write out more of the details. And I can write it through a head, I can write it through my heart, and then how do I bring those two together so that there's something here, and make sure that I tap into my history, the mystery, and the presence, and find ways to word that together in my journal. Then what you're able to do is take it and using a storyboard, and that's what I've done even for this video, is taking it and actually showing how they all link together, like A to B to C to D to E to F, and making a storyboard. And what you can do is, if you want, is just create them out of sticky notes. And then if you want to, you can move things around a little bit as you take a look at it. That's what I do with these videos. I actually create them in my production software so that I have a storyboard to work with. And at the very beginning, I'm moving slides around, putting them in different orders, editing them, and just to see what comes of it. So that's the 3 steps of this documentation of story to get ready to be able to share stories. And that in itself is of great value moving forward. So what I wanted to do with this video was to help you understand and value story. Because if you're going to stop aging, I'm not saying stop it in the sense of the aging, but looking at it maybe through lens to a lens, then what you can do is start living things that I can do and the stories that I can share, and therefore continue my legacy life, living a legacy life, and stories becoming such an important element of it. Writing articles, shooting videos, sewing a quilt, a story quilt, creating a structure, whatever creative process allows you to bring that story to the foreground, then this video is a prompt to get you there. But also, if you go through the story sharing workshop that will be coming up, that will help you as well. But one of the key things on a day-to-day basis that you can do is grab a journal, lined or unlined, and watch the shorts every morning, no later than 8 o'clock Calgary time, which is mountain time. I put up a short, somewhere around 50 to 59 seconds. It's a prompt. It's a creative prompt that gets you to go, if you take that prompt and then create a story for yourself around it, document it on one of the recipe cards or the post-it notes, put that into your journal that you can then maneuver them around, move them around, see what you can do with them to create something afterwards. That is a great start as well. So that I offer to you. So with that, understand and value the importance of story. It's such a fun activity to engage in. With that, take care.